Hi there. This is a tarot reading for Capricorn, Ascendant, Moon, or Sun for the month of December 2018. And I'm using the Gemini Astrology Tarot spread, which I've recently created. And for more about that spread and how it works, excuse me, you can see my video on it on my YouTube channel. And otherwise, yeah, we're just going to get right to it here. Capricorn, this will be your sign right here. This is your ascendant. Capricorn is always here in this spread, regardless of how the cards are coming out. This is always where Capricorn is. So this will be your ascendant. And we've got the 13th card here to sort of tie all of the different threads together, kind of the underlying thing, so to speak. Yeah, first let's just do a basic overview here. You've got 3 major arcana, which is not really that many. It's about 1/4 of the cards. So not anything necessarily super huge going on for you this month in terms of like big giant changes and stuff like that. But you do have a major arcana in your ascendant. So that makes the major arcana a little bit more prominent and whatnot in general for you this month. Excuse me. So let's see, what else do we got here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4 pentacle cards. We have 1, 2, 3 swords cards. And we kind of have an honorary 4th sword card because Justice is holding a sword. So far we've got the most pentacles, closely followed by swords. And then we've got 1 cups card. So the least amount of water, but we've sort of got an honorary cups type card here because that's a watery card, the star. And then we've got 2 wands cards. So we've really got the least amount of water. So the least amount of emotional stuff perhaps for you this month. A little bit of fire situations going on, but mostly it's about pentacles stuff, earthy stuff, and closely followed by swords. So it's kind of an interesting one. Let's see what other patterns do we find. If we look around, we find 10, 10, and 10. So 3 10s. That's quite a lot. So 10s is going to be a big theme for us here. And then we have a 9 and an 8, a 4 and a 3, and an ace. So nothing much else really repeating itself too forcibly here. Although we do have 8 and 4. And so, oh, and we do have 2 8s. So 8s and 10s are sort of most prominent. And again, 4 being half of 8 is also perhaps significant. Oh, we have 2 4s actually. I'm sorry, we have 2 4s. Okay, so 2 4s and 2 8s. So that's going to be a theme, a definite theme that I'll get into here in a moment. So let me jump to your ascendant though first, I think. The star. Interesting that that's your ascendant. That's not a very Capricornish card, you know. It's not really it's not really in sync with Capricorn. You know, Capricorn is typically the super hard worker, achiever, wants to make sure they're doing everything kind of by the book, so to speak, so that they can, you know, have a respectable position in the grander scheme of civilization and society and whatnot. That's a pretty typical sort of Capricorn thing. But of course, Capricorns also do love simplicity and nature. And so the star, you know, is kind of emphasizing that theme. The star might be suggesting that this month is a period of time where you're going to be more inclined to actually chill out and sort of get in touch more with your inner spirit rather than be in a workaholic mode of sorts. You're still kind of in a workaholic mode because you've got the 10 of Pentacles in the 10th house. So you're working very, very hard to ensure some kind of like familial bliss or vision of like a fulfilled life. It's a very American dream kind of juxtaposition we have here of these 2 10s. And these 2 10s have showed up in a couple other spreads I've done recently for other signs. But here they're right next to each other, which is quite unique in the scheme of things. So yeah, there's still a lot of hard work and stuff, but this card here is suggesting that, again, maybe this month you're going to be poised to really let go of some things, you know, just sort of chill out some more and kind of I don't know, maybe just simply communing with nature, maybe just simply getting into a place where you can, kind of remember what it means to have hopes and dreams and to live by them, and hopes and dreams that are perhaps more for you. The star card is really, it's a lonely card, and Capricorn is a pretty lonely sign at times, but Capricorn oftentimes doesn't take care of itself and its emotional needs. So this is a good opportunity to sort of just I don't know, just become naked in a sense, metaphorically speaking, like be naked and vulnerable, and be, not a thing most Capricorns like to do, but sort of, let the past be what it's going to be, and sort of really deal with your personal life and your own I'm having trouble with the words. It's really a star chariot thing, the number 7 that I'm trying to get at here. It's about being independent, but being independent and complete as you are independent, not trying to do everything necessarily by yourself, but searching for a completeness that comes from real independence and real acceptance of who we are in the grander scheme of things. So sorry, that's a little vague for right now. Maybe it'll become clearer as we progress through this spread. I think it's interesting that the star is aspected by the upside down 10 of cups, which in this situation is going to make ideals like really, really high for some kind of like blissful state of being. So but I kind of see this as like a little bit dysfunctional in this context. It's a little bit trying to make everything too happy-go-lucky to the point where it's too much of a good thing, and it's sort of getting spoiled. It's like an over-ripened fruit. If you let the fruit over-ripen, it's too sweet and it's too mushy, and it starts to just not really taste good. You need to have it at that sweet spot where it still has a little bit of like toughness to it, resistance, and it's like a little bit sour, like not super sour or anything, but the nice juxtaposition of sour and sweet. So I sort of feel like maybe this is an influence that's kind of making you a little have your head in the clouds kind of a thing. That could easily be. And this is the 11th house of hopes and wishes. So, hopes and wishes for something that is maybe just not necessarily meant to be. I think that's kind of the vibe I'm getting here, because the card that comes before it too, the 10 of Pentacles, is more down to earth. It's more realistic in a sense. These are two halves of the number 10 in a way, and so this is like the realistic version of completion of a cycle. You've got the different generations and characters represented, but this is more like the idealistic one. It's not that people are unhappy here, they're just not necessarily like blissfully happy in some overly idealistic manner, whereas here this is like, again, it's just too much, too sweet. It's like too much sugar, too ripe of a fruit. So it's something that's influencing you to kind of be too dreamy and maybe too idealistic, and actually you're getting away from the more practical reality that is normally perhaps your avenue of existence. Because this is a very Capricorn card, very, very Capricorn, and it's actually in a great place and largely auspicious influences on it, which I'll talk about when we get to that card. Let's see, the star is also aspected by the Ace of Pentacles and the 8 of Pentacles reversed. So again, this is easily signs of overworking, but it also may be an inability to confront new financial potentials or work in the world, because the Ace is a new potential and the 8 is kind of like almost like you're either escaping from this work here, or you are just kind of like you're continuing on this work for its own sake. You're becoming like myopic or having tunnel vision or something like that, so there's maybe a little bit of a dysfunction surrounding this. It's something that you perhaps need to move on from. You've studied enough, you've you've worked enough, you've done this one thing by yourself enough, right? Maybe now it's time to reach for something new, something brand new, which could spur you to like new heights and new dimensions, which is cool. So that's something to consider. In the second house, we have the Chariot, which is the complement to the Star, because they both are the seventh card in their respective series of 10. And that is something that I may talk about more in the future in separate videos, but I am talking about it quite a bit in the Major Arcana videos I'm doing with my friends Vanita and Fernando. And you can find those on Vanita Lenka's YouTube channel. So you can check out more about mine and their perspectives on these different Major Arcana. A lot of wealth of information there. Anyway, the Chariot and the Star together is, just complementary, pretty auspicious and whatnot. Overall, Chariot's in your second house of money and wealth. And it's got two swords cards aspecting it. So I would kind of think there's some worry over wealth and stuff, coupled with a lot of ambition, because the Chariot is a very ambitious card, militant, zealous, things like that. And it's also aspected by the extremely rich and also ambitious 10 of Pentacles. So a lot of ambition, but a lot of like worry over this kind of stuff, maybe too much worry. And since the Chariot's right side up while the Star is reversed, this could easily also be a situation in which you are giving way too much attention to your finances, or even to your family, although this isn't a very familial card. If anything, this would represent leaving your family in some way, or doing something radically different from your family. But there's just perhaps too much attention being given to this and whatnot. And as you sort of continue, eventually, things may balance themselves out, or you may find that you've overlooked some things and you have to face justice. I'm kind of getting the vibe of like the IRS here with justice. It's something like that, or even if you didn't mean to overlook something like certain taxes or whatever, the fact that you're just maybe not paying attention to reality, because again, the Star is very dreamy. It's kind of interfering with your ability to focus on reality and be a more practical, down-to-earth type person, which is a common Capricorn trait. So I sort of like caution you there. Justice in the third house is sort of like maybe cautioning, abstaining from too much pleasures, or just being in a place where you have a tendency to like weigh your actions way too much, and so you're kind of inactive. Could be a bit of fear surrounding taking action and whatnot. And we kind of see this reiterated by the Eight of Swords aspecting justice, bringing kind of a feeling of being locked into a routine or a pattern, something kind of inescapable. We also see the Three of Wands aspecting and the Knight of Wands. I'm not sure just yet what to make of that. It's quite odd, I think. It may become more clear as I come around to those cards in the course of the reading. So I'll sort of leave that behind and see if anything comes to light as I continue, especially since I like to do these non-linearly. And speaking of which, I'm going to jump to the 13th card, because as we talked about this like financial stuff that's going on, this is the card of Earth disease, money grubbing, being way too Tomasic, meaning that you're just holding everything like he's doing when it comes to finances, trying to create security. And, it's this desperate bid, I think, for this 10 of cups mentality, this idyllic mentality, this completion. You're desperately trying to complete something perhaps within this month's events. We've got 3 10s. So there's like this desperate bid to complete things. And we've got the Chariot aspecting 2 of those 10s. So again, desperate bid to complete these things, to deal with whatever these things are. And then Star aspecting the 10 of cups is and mutually the hope for this to all work out. But this is kind of very unrealistic in my opinion. It's not really grounded in reality to me. It's more like escapism and fantasy. It's better to just deal with what is. This is, again, a very auspicious card. that we'll come back around to probably more than once. Yeah, so four of Pentacles here. This is kind of underlying everything you're doing. You're too concerned with security and finances. And this card came up in another sign I read for, either maybe Taurus or Gemini. I can't remember, but so you may want to find that video and see which one it was, and then talk to those folks about this or whatever. May have something in common, because theirs was upside down. So you may be able to balance it out with those people or something. I don't know. Maybe wishful thinking. But yeah, this card is sort of it could easily spoil a lot of the good that is already present. You know, it's almost like if this old man is you, it's almost like instead of being with his family and his animals and stuff, he's reflecting on how worried he is about money. So do your best to not be that person. You're going to have a better time if you don't do that. And you may actually even be able to have fun, which you're not looking like you're having this month with Justice there, worried about every move you make and about leisure and things. And it's not uncommon for Capricorns to have a hard time with that anyway. On that note, skipping ahead, you also have the Eight of Pentacles reversed in the 5th house, which also has to do with like risk and joy and individuality. Again, overworking yourself to the point where you're kind of disempowering yourself and stuff. You know, your fantasies and whatnot are tied up in your work, this mutual aspect. But the 10 aspecting, this is perhaps metaphorically killing you, in the sense that it's causing a lot of stress and strain and problems for you. You know, it's and then this aspecting is interesting because it's kind of like this is like something you feel like you're working towards really, really hard. You're working towards this. You got to just keep work. There's no time for you. There's no time to do anything fun, to take risks. You just got to work, and that kind of a thing. You know, not like that stupid Rihanna song where at least there, you know, in that stupid video and stuff, like in all of her videos, you know, at least people look like they're having a bit of fun, even if it's kind of debaucherous and whatnot. But yeah, you're working way too hard, basically, is what a lot of this is saying, I think. Not uncommon for Capricorn, so don't beat yourself up about it too much. Returning to the 4th house, which we skipped, we've got it reversed next to Justice, next to this Eight of Pentacles, aspected by the Chariot, by the Ace of Pentacles, interesting, and by the idyllic 10 of Cups. This is an inability. All of this stuff is pointing toward an inability to just rest and relax and pause, which you desperately need to do, in my opinion, especially if you're going to find this new financial opportunity. This card is potentially supported by this card, and mutually they may be supporting each other, because as you rest, as you let things go, as you let things die and be buried, right, instead of avoiding them, you may be able to tap into some wonderful new financial opportunity. But this is your 8th house, and the 8th house involves other people. It's other people's money and things like that. So this is something that perhaps you're a little afraid or unfamiliar with, to take advantage of working with others, not having to just do everything by yourself. It could also be taking advantage of some kind of inheritance or something like that. It looks like, you know, possibly somebody has died or left your life, but there's new opportunities upon the horizon. But those are only going to come if you relax and stop worrying about everything and fantasizing about all this stuff that's unrealistic, right? And stop overworking yourself and just listen silently, so to speak. Or more down to earth type thing, if, you know, there was something with a loved one passing on, and maybe you feel guilty or afraid to take advantage of what they left you, or what their death has opened up for you. You know, that's another thing. That's another way to look at it. So all in all, this is a very auspicious card and can really help you to sort of chill out, mellow out, and explore some new opportunities financially, but only if you sort of let that happen. Again, seventh house, this is not looking easy for relationships, for marriage, for love, and stuff like that. And you're going to have a tendency to escape from it. You're not looking at it. You just won't look at it. Or you think you can just, with the chariot aspecting there, you may think that you can just power through it. Just it's another thing to conquer or get over or something. But in reality, you're avoiding it. You're avoiding it, and you're, again, avoiding it here in your work, avoiding it in your fantasies, right? So you're really avoiding whatever this crisis or tragedy is. If it's a tragedy, that's a point of view. It doesn't have to be a tragedy, but just a challenging circumstance. And if this is referring to a really emotionally dysfunctional partner or person in your life, right, then again, there's a lot of avoidance around it. All three cards aspecting it are reversed, and all three are sort of escaping into something that's not even remotely akin to this. So a lot of conflict avoidance patterns here, which I definitely don't encourage you to do. I encourage you to face this. It's begging to be faced. It's not reversed. It's not blocked. It's begging to be faced. And look, even this Knight of Wands is traversing here. So you obviously have someone in your life or near you that is, willing to deal with this. Maybe it's someone you don't like, someone you feel enmity towards, because this is the sixth house. But honestly, this is actually an auspicious card to have in the sixth house, because it means that there's the possibility of really just rising to the challenges that occur and stuff like that. But I think only if you take advantage of that. Your 12th house is this Three of Wands kind of staring off into the distance, just like some of these other cards, staring off into nothingness, not really facing reality. So, why don't you want to face dealing with these difficult problems? What are you escaping from? You have the ability to do it, right? This strong Chariot card in your second house, this strong Knight card in your sixth house, you have the ability to do it. There's really no problem. And in your 12th house too, this is a powerful card, but you're afraid to use that power. There's some fear around using it. God forbid you face this difficult or challenging situation and just move forward with your life. Just get on with it, kind of a thing, But you feel ninth house here with justice aspecting, you feel kind of trapped. You feel kind of cursed by God, perhaps. You may be cursing your fate or feeling like a victim. But the more auspicious side of this card, the 8 here, is that you listen and wait and hear the divine message, so to speak, that will inevitably emerge. I think the more you sort of listen and wait, right, 4 and 8 here being more like pauses or passive kinds of cards, the more you will be able to understand what it is you need to do. It's, the wisdom to take the next step is always there for all of us, but oftentimes we get bogged down and we have a hard time waiting. So I would really encourage listening. Don't try to figure everything out. Just listen and wait. This is a very temporary situation. It's really not a very permanent long-term situation, in my opinion, especially since we've got these Wands cards aspecting it, and justice, things are moving, things are shaping up and whatnot. Okay. Justice can cut these bonds off of this person here. So what does that mean? Well, it just means that if you just let things take their natural course and stop interfering with them by worrying about them and, thinking about what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Right? They will just take their course and happen naturally, and you'll be freed from a seemingly afflictive scenario, and you won't be tempted to retreat into kind of a state of pessimism that's arresting. 10 of Pentacles in the 10th house, just generally really auspicious for work. I think, again, it's a lot of pleasure and prosperity from your work, and you're good with finances for the most part this month. With the Chariot there, you have a lot of power and independence. Even you have just a lot of abundance and whatnot. You do. And what you're gaining from that here is well, I've talked kind of more negatively about this card this time, but uh, what you are gaining from the work you're doing is a little more unrealistic or nostalgic in the grand estimation of things. It's not necessarily this really like wonderful thing. It's sort of like a covering up of what things really are. This is a fantasy. It just speaks to me as a fantasy, just a hardcore fantasy. I just don't think it's real. I think again, we've got these swords cards aspecting it, and it's just not. It's escapism. It's really escapism. That's the result of a lot of the work you're doing, even though this is fairly auspicious. And this has two other pentacle cards aspecting. Again, a lot of work, just kind of being myopic, missing out on the simpler joys of life because of this. And looking for this new potential, or if you already know what it is, trying to figure out what to do with it, that kind of a thing. Chariot aspects, which is actually probably the most auspicious thing. So again, you do have the ability to just take command and forge ahead. You can do whatever you want when it comes to your work and stuff. But I think if you keep escaping into this and you keep thinking that you're stuck when you're actually not, you're just not thinking very outside the box. You're thinking very inside the box with multiple 4s and 8s here being juxtaposed, right? The 4s think inside the box. The 4s want things to be neat and nice and just obvious, just basic order. But the 8s are definitely going to think more outside the box. And we even have Justice, the major arcana that refers to 8. It's not 11 as it is here. It's really 8. That's the older tradition of it, and that's how I use it. So with the juxtaposition of 4s and 8s, there is a potential to like break outside of the box and start thinking too about the future and how this relates to your spirit, so to speak, like that part of us that makes us feel alive, that those parts of our life that make us feel really alive and invigorated and inspirited, inspired, inspiration, spiritus. So there is that potential, and it's not always an easy potential, maybe this 8 of Pentacles is actually more about being willing to do what you love in the context of the 10th house here specifically. Do what you love and don't be so freaking afraid of that. Get out of your comfort zone of these 4s and do what you love. And yeah, it might be a little uncomfortable. You might have to do things that you otherwise wouldn't want to do, and that's making you feel trapped. But all in all, I think that is the path to glory for you, real glory this month. And that will also probably get you out of this ridiculous fantasy world that I just keep seeing with these cards. Sorry, guys. Yeah, and this is a prime example of how, quote unquote, good cards are not always good. Even if I didn't use reversals, I've seen plenty of situations when I used to not use reversals where these quote unquote really good cards were actually not signifying anything all that great. So it's just a good example of that. And this card is aspected by the 4 of Swords, the 10 of Swords, like I mentioned earlier, and then the Star. I've already talked about this aspect, but the Swords aspects upon it, again, it's really like, it's just really showing how much of a fantasy this is, how unrealistic it is, but you're sort of unwilling to see it with this reversal. And so it's sort of just creeping in on the side. It's just sort of like creeping up and stabbing you in the back from time to time. And there's kind of an oscillation happening between these two, like escaping into this fantasy realm that's not really sustainable versus like when you come back from it, you're faced with the cold hard reality of what's going on in your life. Again, this is the 7th house. It polarizes the 1st house. It's something that you have to interface with. You can't, this is not going to go away on its own. It's just not. But the good news is that if you do face it, You get new financial potentials. Maybe you start doing something you really enjoy. You get out of a state of bondage and so on, and you can maybe bring some things to completion. All these tens, bringing things to completion. A cycle is ending for you this month, perhaps. And that's beautiful. You just have to learn to let go, which is all what the 12th house is about. But of course, the 12th house here is, is kind of a card of, again, it's sort of in an avoidance mentality. It's sort of in a fleeing all this other stuff with the way the card came out. All you got to do is turn around and face it, face your fears, and you'll find that actually things weren't as insanely horrible as maybe you thought they were. Just rip off that Band-Aid, just get it over with. To be more macabre, just, shove that dislocated elbow joint back in, like in an old episode of Xena Warrior Princess, where she dislocates her elbow and then just shoves herself into this rock face and just like relocates it kind of brutally. But, once it's done, it's like, oh, okay, well, still kind of hurts, but at least now I can use my arm. It's kind of that mentality, that sort of vibe. So I don't have too much else to say. I think that I'm going to draw a card here from the bottom real quick to juxtapose that fourth card there. And lo and behold, it is the Emperor, a very powerful, independent card. And the Emperor, instead of clutching madly for dear life to what you have, the Emperor is sort of advising you to basically forge ahead, realize that on a certain level, you have a lot more say over life and death, at least in your own life, your own destiny, than you're giving yourself credit for. You have a lot more power, access it, appeal to those deities that are emperor-like, that have an emperor-like tone to their mythos. Indra, Zeus, Odin, Thor, empowerment. It's about empowerment. Take your throne. Stop worrying about the small stuff. Don't worry about stupid monetary stuff that, like, God, I had this uncle who was like a millionaire, and he would brag about getting discounted cans of tomatoes. This guy was worth like $80 million. This was like 20 years ago or so. This is ridiculous. This is the Four of Pentacles. This, the uncle I'm talking about. He pretended to be an emperor. He had this big giant house and all this land, but he was this guy in this picture. He wasn't an emperor. So, I encourage you to govern your own life, take control of your own life, be your own emperor, make your own rules, so to speak. Don't think, oh, this is the way it's always been done, so I have to do it. This is how we've done it for hundreds of years in my family, or this is how everybody else does it, and I just have to do it this way, and I don't like it. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Just rise up and take hold of what is rightfully yours. That's it. There's nothing egotistical about that. Just embrace life, embrace destiny, and embrace your power and use it. It's fine. I promise you'll be okay. All right, guys. Well, that's it for this one. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, share this video far and wide, and check out my website for personalized readings and information and whatnot. And check me out on Facebook and Instagram. And otherwise, have a great month. Okay, see you next time.